What's up, everyone? Today we're diving into something insane. Forget what you learned in history class. Ancient Egypt was 1,000 times weirder and creepier than you can possibly imagine. We're talking about things that were totally normal for them, but would freak us out today. I'm not just talking about pyramids, pharaohs, pulling brains out through noses, burying people alive with their dead kings, using actual poison as makeup. It sounds like something out of a horror movie, but for them, this was just another Tuesday. We spent an insane amount of time and resources digging up the wildest facts we could find, and trust me, it gets crazier with every single one. We're going to count down the 10 most shocking and creepy norms from ancient Egypt, and by the end of this video, you will never look at a mummy the same way again. This isn't just history, this is the dark, bizarre underbelly of one of the most famous civilizations ever. So get ready. Witazabudi dan, witazan porkerson son. Widaz them modding babber sir. Widaz and Delbershan Browwood are about to go on a wild ride back in time. 10 insane facts, each more mind-blowing than the last. If you think you know ancient Egypt, you're about to be proven wrong. This is the stuff they definitely don't show you in museums. Let's get into it. Alright, kicking things off with number 1. Mummification. You've all heard of it, but do you know how truly clinical and bizarre this process was? Imagine this. Someone you know dies and the first thing that happens is a team of priests shows up to take them apart, like a car engine. This wasn't just wrapping a body in bandages, it was a full-blown surgical procedure. The embalmers would make a sharp incision on the left side of the abdomen. This wasn't clumsy hacking, it was a precise cut. They would then reach inside the body cavity, literally reach their hands inside, and pull out the stomach, the intestines, the liver, and the lungs. Once the organs were out, they weren't just thrown away. Each organ was individually cleaned, dried with natron, and wrapped in linen strips, like a tiny mummy. They were placed into 4 special containers called canopic jars. Each jar had a lid shaped like one of the 4 sons of Horus: human-headed, liver, baboon, lungs, jackal, stomach, falcon, intestines. The jars went in the tomb next to the sarcophagus. The only major organ left inside was the heart. Egyptians believed the heart was the center of intelligence, emotion, and memory. In the afterlife, your heart was weighed against a feather. If it was heavy with bad deeds, a monster would devour it. The heart was the one piece they couldn't risk losing. The key to eternal life. Okay, if you thought the organ thing was weird, get ready for this. We're talking about the brain. You'd think the center of consciousness would be pretty important, right? Well, the ancient Egyptians completely disagreed. To them, the brain was literally just useless stuffing. All thinking and feeling came from the heart, so when it came to mummification, the brain had to go. But how do you get a brain out of a skull without smashing the head open? The answer is absolutely disgusting. They used a long metal hook. I'm not kidding. The embalmers would shove it up the nostril and push it through the thin bone into the brain cavity. Once inside the skull, they would just stir. They would whisk the brain around like they were scrambling eggs, breaking it down into a semi-liquid mush. Imagine the sound that would make. Once the brain was sufficiently liquefied, the real fun began. The brain gunk would literally just pour out of the nose. Whatever didn't drain out, they flushed with palm wine and cedar oil. Then fished out the leftover solid bits with the hook. They didn't save it, they didn't put it in a canopic jar, they didn't mummify it. They just threw it away. All that knowledge, all those memories, tossed like garbage because they believed it was all in the heart. It's a massive scientific mistake that feels incredibly personal and creepy. So next time you see that serene face, remember the hook. It's absolutely wild. You think mummifying people is a lot of work? The ancient Egyptians took it to a whole other level. They mummified millions of animals, not beloved pets, an industrial operation, breeding, killing, and mummifying for offerings, cats for bastet. Pilgrims bought and offered them to gain favor. Many were very young, and many had their necks deliberately broken. At Saqqara, an estimated 8 million dogs. At Tuna El Gabel, around 4 million ibises. Intricate linen patterns, painted faces, and crocodiles mummified with their babies. Creepiest twist. Many were fakes, empty, or a feather, or a few random bones, sold to unsuspecting pilgrims. A transactional, mass industry. what we'd call an ecological disaster today. Now, to some of the darkest stuff. In the earliest dynasties, rulers didn't die alone. Servants, guards, even concubines were killed and buried with them. Retainer sacrifice. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, buried at the same time as their master. Likely poisoned during funeral feasts, others strangled, or even buried alive. The king as god needed a full household in the next world. Thankfully they shifted to magical Shabti figurines. A symbolic workforce. Yet those first generations paid in human lives. This one is tough, but it's part of their history. In rare cases, children were powerful offerings. Some were buried near temple walls, foundation sacrifices meant to sanctify and protect buildings. At Dakhla Oasis, a cemetery of infants and fetuses, likely high mortality. But patterns suggest ritual context tied to fertility cults. To some, the more precious the offering, the more the gods might listen. A heartbreaking, deeply disturbing logic. The evidence is sparse and debated, but the shadow is there. Everyone knows the iconic eyeliner. Men and women wore it for fashion, religion, and magic. Irony, it was often toxic. Lead sulfide and lead chlorides. Yes, lead, a potent neurotoxin, ground to powder, mixed with oil and fat, applied daily to delicate skin. Studies suggest tiny doses stimulated nitric oxide, helping fight eye infections in the dusty Nile Valley. Short-term protection versus slow-burn poison, a double-edged sword. They also use malachite. Copper can harm in high doses. They chose beauty and ritual over health unknowingly. They lined their eyes with poison, believing it kept them safe. Iconic and creepy, because it worked in one way while slowly hurting in another. You've heard of the Curse of the Pharaohs. It's rooted in real Egyptian practice. No motion sensors or steel vaults, so they used magic. Terrifying, specific threats carved into stone. One reads, "As for anyone who enters this tomb in his impurity, I shall wring his neck as a bird's." Crocodiles and snakes set upon violators, their name forgotten, divine judgment promised. The goal? Psychological terror, especially for locals who believed in these powers. Did it work? Most royal tombs were robbed. The gold was too tempting. Still, the lengths they went to show how real magic was to them, and how far they'd go to protect eternal rest. Magic wasn't just for tombs, it was daily life, with a dark side. Curse rivals with figurines. Write the name. Break the legs. Bind the arms. Stick pins. Bury it. Burn it. Toss it in the river. Archaeologists have found huge caches of these. The state did it too. Smashing enemy names before war. Love spells demanded domination, unable to eat or sleep, her heart burning, her soul after me. Even in court records, conspirators used wax figures against Ramesses III, executed for treason and witchcraft. To the Egyptians, magic was a real and dangerous weapon. We've talked about mummification, now the people who did it. For embalmers, death was the workplace. The Wabet, pure place, held bodies at every stage of a 70-day process. Fresh bodies washed and eviscerated, others drying in natron, others oiled, perfumed and wrapped in endless linen. They cut, removed organs, even scooped out the brain, handling every part. A sacred duty. He who controls the secrets, rituals from first incision to final wrapping. They believed they transform mortals into divine beings, gatekeepers to the afterlife. Our society hides death, theirs kept it visible, tangible, constant. These priests were respected, performing a vital service. Okay, weirdest of all, and later in history, Europeans ate mummies. Ground-up mummy, mummia, was prescribed for headaches, stomach aches, even broken bones. A linguistic mix-up with bitumen sparked a gruesome trade. Tombs were looted for bodies, shipped by the ton, ground into powder, and swallowed. Demand outpaced supply, so merchants faked ancient mummies with fresh corpses. Some kept mummified parts as charms, the ultimate disrespect to a culture obsessed with eternal preservation. Outro, and there you have it. 10 of the creepiest, most insane things that were totally normal in ancient Egypt. From pulling brains out through noses to eating mummies as medicine, it's clear their world was so different from ours in ways we can barely comprehend. It's one thing to see artifacts behind glass, another to understand the bizarre and sometimes horrifying beliefs that created them. History isn't simple or clean. None of this was evil to them. It made sense within their cosmology. Guided by the quest for eternal life and appeasing the gods, They walked strange paths. Learning this teaches us about human diversity, and how normal always changes. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you were as shocked as I was, hit that subscribe button, because we are always diving into the craziest topics we can find. Which of these creepy norms freaked you out the most? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next insane video. We'll see you in the next one.